What's up guys, and welcome back to our channel. Today's video is going to be about my traumatic C-section experience with my daughter Hazel. I am making this video solely because I do have moms and new mommies follow me here on this channel, and I'm making it just so if you feel like something's wrong, if you don't feel right, if you have a mean nurse, speak up. Speak up, because this is your experience. This is something you're going to remember for the rest of your life, and they may call you crazy. They may say like, no, you're fine, calm down. But you know your body. You have mommy instincts. As soon as you get pregnant, they start to kick in. You know what is right, you know what is wrong, and just don't let them push you around. They do leave a phone number for a nurse, like the nurse leader. So if you don't like your nurses, call that number and get a new nurse, because at the end of the day, it's your body and your baby. So I'm gonna start the video I'm gonna start it off with how I went into the hospital healthy and I came out pretty unhealthy. So my contractions started around 6 in the morning. I didn't wake my husband up until about 9, and I was like, okay, I'm ready to go. I think she's coming. This was the day before my daughter was supposed to be due, so I was about to hit 40 weeks. So we went, first we stopped to get tacos, because if you are about to have a baby, eat before you go, because as soon as you get admitted, you're not going to eat until after you have your baby. And if you have a C-section, you're not going to eat until after your first poop. So I didn't eat for 32 hours straight, and I was dying. So yes, tip number 1, eat before you go. So anyways, we stopped, got tacos, I ate, and we got to the hospital. So my doctor was, luckily she was already at the hospital. She had previous sections. Hang on. It's an airplane. So yes, so my doctor was already at the hospital. She had 5 C-sections already lined up. So she told the nurse, just admit her since I'm already gonna be here, and we can monitor her and I can get her in. So I got admitted. At first I did want to do a natural birth, but my nurse was like, no, if you wait until you're like further along, I think once you hit like 7 centimeters, they can't give you an epidural. So she kind of scared me into it. I was doing fine with the pain. I have a high pain tolerance, but she scared me into it. So I was like, okay, let's get the epidural. So she starts my IV, and when she started my IV in, she was not paying attention, and she did trip over it. She tripped over it and it pulled it and it hurt. She didn't say sorry, she didn't say anything. She just continued about her business. So that was like already a red flag, but I was like, okay, whatever. Let's get this baby out. So after a while, the anesthesiologist finally came in. I got my epidural. After I got my epidural, my doctor did pop my water bag. So after you pop your water bag, you are prone to getting infections, because that water bag somehow keeps infections from happening. So anyways, she pops my water bag, and she did ask my nurse they had to give you a catheter, because obviously when you get your epidural, you can't be walking around and going to use the bathroom. So they have the catheters in a sterile bag, and the nurse opened up the bag and it fell on the floor. And me and her made eye contact, and she laughed about it, and she's like, sorry, it's been a long day. And she picked the catheter up and gave it to my doctor. I don't know if my doctor didn't see her drop it or what, but my doctor inserted it, and she also inserted, I think, a monitor up there or something. I know I had 2 things inserted up my area. So I was like, okay, whatever. So she did that, and once you get your epidural too, they do come in every hour to flip you on different sides. The reason they do that is because they don't want the epidural to just be just like work on one side of your body. So yes, I am a heavy set girl. I did max out at 200 pounds with my daughter, so I understand I was heavy. I couldn't move at all. I tried my best, but it was hard. So her and another nurse would try and flip me over. And 2 different times when they did that, they got my epidural catheter, because it is a catheter. It's not just a shot and then you're fine. It's a catheter that administers medicine. I forgot how often it administers it, but that catheter and my IV started tangling up, so it kept yanking on it, and it was just like I had like all these wires like just moving around me. So it yanked my IV from my hand. It yanked it out, and she had to insert a different one. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then slowly but surely, I started getting sick. I started getting, like, I could not stop shaking. Me and my daughter's heart rate started skyrocketing, and I got a fever. My fever maxed out at 102.7. So they did give me Tylenol up my butt to try and knock it down, and they had the room set at like 65. They had ice packs all over me to try and like cool me down, but it wasn't working. So at 1 in the morning, my doctor was like, you know what, you need to have a C-section. We got to get this baby out. Her heart rate is getting too high. She's in distress. So I was scared, and I was like, okay, let's do it. So my husband stayed in the room, because if you're going to have a C-section, your husband will, or whoever's with you, is going to stay in the delivery room or the waiting room until they're ready to bring them back into your C-section room. So I went into the C-section room, by myself. I'm freaking out. And as soon as they lift me off of the bed and put me onto the table, my back would not stop hurting. And I kept telling the nurse, I was like, my back hurts. And she's like, it's normal. But I was crying. And then she kept injecting me through my epidural. And every time she would inject it, my legs felt like they were on fire. So I was legit screaming, crying, like, my legs burn, they burn. It hurts. I can't take it. And she was like, you need to calm down. You're making your baby distress. I was like, I don't know what you want me to do. You want me to tell you I'm not in pain when I really am in pain? And they kept scraping my stomach to see, like, do you feel it? And I was like, yes, I feel everything y'all are doing. So she ended up telling me, she's like, okay, here, take this. It's oxygen. And then the next thing I noticed, I just wake up and then I have no baby. So they had to put me asleep. So I wake up to my husband and I'm like, where's Hazel? And he's like, well, they had to take her back into the NICU room because they had to give her antibiotics because she got sick from me getting sick. So I didn't see my daughter for a full 8 hours. As soon as you have your baby, you want to hold your baby. I carried her for 9 months. That was the one thing I was looking forward to, was holding her, but I couldn't. So I go back into the recovery room. I'm like, I feel sick. I don't feel well. I'm in and out. I was really drugged up. And they kept taking my blood pressure, and my blood pressure was so low. So let me reverse a little bit. I missed the part where the nurse did go out and tell my husband. She was like, okay, you're not allowed in this room. We're going to have to put her under, and we'll let you know if anything happens. So my husband said that he waited for 3.5, almost 4 hours until they came and told him something. And he actually went up to the nurse headquarters, whatever, and was like, I need to see my wife. Is my wife okay? What's going on? They were like, oh, okay, yeah, she's okay. She's in the recovery room. I don't even know. I was knocked out. And the doctor did tell him that I almost needed a blood transfusion because I lost so much blood. And that I was gonna have to stay a longer time in the hospital because of it. So anyways, we go back into my room. We finally get Hazel. And they take her every hour, every 2 hours to administer antibiotics into her. I did notice, and they had the IV in her foot, and I noticed like something wasn't right, that it was like I could see blood coming out, and I was like, is this right? And one of the nurses was like, yeah, it's fine. So I had another nurse come in because the shifts changed, and I told her, and she's like, oh, no, we need to, her vein collapsed. We need to put it somewhere else. So I was already getting like really annoyed. Like, I'm telling you, like, this isn't right for my daughter, but they ignored me. And then there's nurses, and then I don't know if you would call them nurses, but they just come in and check your blood pressure. They're not like actual nurses. I don't know how to explain it. But she came in to take my blood pressure, and mind you, I still have an IV. I still have an IV. So she took my blood pressure on the arm that had the IV, and when she did that, it's constricting your arm. It's constricting it. So when she did that, my IV started like gushing blood out. She's like, oh, I'm sorry, let me go get a nurse to fix that. Like, common sense, use my other arm that doesn't have an IV. So that was like another part of it. And it was just a bad experience. I had a lot of rude nurses coming in and out. And I told my doctor, she was like, I asked her, I was like, is it okay if I go home? I don't want to be here no more. And she's like, well, your blood pressure is still really low, but if you feel like you can, then we'll let you go home. You just need to make sure you're taking, I had to take iron, I had to take a bunch of medications. So I was like, okay, let me do that. So when I'm about to leave, okay, I've seen videos, like movies, every time a pregnant woman has her baby, they always wheelchair them out. Well, I guess my nurse she didn't want to go get a wheelchair or something. And she's like, all right, you ready to go? I was like, yeah. And she's like, all right, let's go. So she made me walk all the way, like throughout the whole hospital. I had to go all the way and then go in the elevator, go down, walk all the way to the parking lot. And I was like, and I'm in pain. I just had a C-section. And I don't know, I thought that was like really rude of her, just because she was lazy. She didn't want to get a wheelchair. And I know it's because she was being lazy, because with my son, I had like a total like good C-section story. But my nurse, when I had my son, wheelchaired me out. You always see pregnant women getting wheelchaired out, but she was just lazy. So I know it doesn't seem like a lot. It was just a lot of little events happening, and when you're going through it, it seems like forever. You feel like I don't know. It was a traumatic experience. And then to top this off, it doesn't even kind of go with the story, but when we came home, we had an eviction notice on our door because our apartment people, like, they said that we didn't pay, or their system like shut down. So they were making sure like, oh, we didn't know if y'all paid or not. So we're waiting for y'all to come in and say, yeah, I paid. And then we were going to check y'all's name off. So I came home from a C-section to an eviction notice on my door. I was freaking out, and we didn't get home till like about 6 o'clock. So the front desk, the front office was closed, so we had to wait until the next day. But that was pretty scary. But anyways, so yeah, that's why I really wanted to make this video just solely for you mothers. Like, if something doesn't feel right, speak up. If you want a different nurse, speak up. They may have educational experience, but we know our bodies. We know our bodies, and we know when something's not right and how we should be treated. And this is a moment you're going to remember for the rest of your life. I will never forget my experience with her. Like, especially with it being my first child, I didn't know anything, and I felt like I was too young to have a C-section, which in reality, you're not ever too young to have one. I was 19 or 20 when I had it. So it was just traumatic. And this is coming from someone who, I've never broken a bone. I've never had stitches. I've never had a traumatic like injury. So it was really hard. And another thing too is they're gonna really push breastfeeding. It was so hard. I was crying, I was in pain, and my nurse was like really rude about it. She's like, it's just simple, just put your boob in her mouth, and she was just like really rough, like trying to show me. But I obviously did catch on how to do it, because I've been doing it for 2+ years. But if you don't want to breastfeed, you don't have to breastfeed. I understand it's the best thing for your baby, but if you don't want to, you don't have to. They shouldn't force something on you. But I'll do like a whole video of how I've kept up with breastfeeding, how I've kept my supply going, how I nursed while being pregnant. But yeah, so thank y'all for watching. And if you have a baby, like I said, speak up and enjoy those little cuddles, because once they get to the toddler stage, they are little buttholes, let's just say that. But I love them so much. I'd do anything for my babies. So yeah, thank y'all for watching, and we'll see y'all next video. Bye.